Hello, everyone. Welcome to this video I've created for you. In this video, we will look at the detailed proposal template that is posted on the course site under week 0. This detailed proposal template is what you will use to respond to the business owners with a proposal of your solutions and recommendations. I'll start by identifying some guiding principles for proposal writing. Number one, listen to the client. The client will identify their need. Sometimes you'll need to ask questions to clarify exactly what they are needing, as sometimes they're not very clear themselves. So the best proposals will be those that really relate to the client's needs and answer to what they are looking for. Number two for a guiding principle is related to number one, and that is listen again to the client needs. It's very easy as a proposal writer to believe that you know what's best for the client and to provide them with solutions that you believe are the best solutions. However, the client may not be ready, the client may be resistant, and so you could end up wasting your time. So let's talk about how to create a winning proposal. What are the goals of your proposal? Number one, you win the work. And with these business owners, although there's no obligation on their part to accept your proposal and to take you on to work on the proposal, there is the opportunity. And the closer that your proposal is to meeting their needs, the more likely it is that you could be successful. Another way to write a winning proposal is to make sure that you establish yourself as a credible consultant. So in the proposal, you'll be asked to identify your credentials. You should, in your profile of your team, make sure that you include your relevant experience and background to the proposal that you're writing. Also, another feature of a winning proposal is that it's clear, concise, says as much as it needs to say to help the client understand, and yet doesn't go overboard. You know, this is not the time to write the novel because you're really into a subject. Keep in mind your reader and the client and what they need to understand and know about the proposal you're putting before them. Also, keep in mind that many business owners now really prefer a shorter proposal rather than a lengthy proposal. So make sure again that you're being really concise in giving information that is necessary to the value of the proposal and not adding in additional information that has no value. This is really important. The last piece of writing a winning proposal is don't assume that the client knows what you know. So as graduating MBA students, you have a lot of experience and background and perhaps in an area where the client really needs the help, but they're not a subject matter expert. They don't really understand all the concepts, terms, acronyms that you use. So make sure that it's written in plain language. This means that a third person can read your proposal and understand what you're saying without needing to be, without having had all your education and experience, that they understand what it is that you are putting before them. For example, if you use Porter's Five Forces, explain what it does before you go into the analysis so that the client can understand what you're talking about, can relate to you. So this is the last piece of advice on writing a winning proposal. So now I'd like to go through the proposal piece by piece so that you can understand what it is that you're writing and do your best in each section. Keep in mind, I'll identify sections that I'll say are mandatory, That is, these are sections you absolutely should include in your proposal, and without them, the proposal just won't be complete. There are other sections that may have options or may not necessarily be required to write an effective proposal for a specific client. So I'm going to bring up now the detailed proposal template so that we can all look at this. So the detailed proposal template. First of all, it indicates use APA style 7th edition. No page limit. But keep in mind what I said earlier, more is not better. And make sure that everything that's in that proposal needs to be in that proposal. As far as using APA style 7th edition, try to stay to that if you can. However, if it doesn't make sense for a portion of the proposal that you're writing or overall, we'll give you some latitude on that. Because keep in mind, again, the business owner who's reading this isn't looking for your APA 7th edition style. All right, so let's get into it. So first of all, a title page. The title page is really more for our course purposes, but will also identify who you are to the client. Make sure you include all the names of your team members, the course number and section, don't forget that, my name, the date, and include a title for your actual proposal. Think about what the client needs are and use a title that relates to what you're delivering to the client. So title page, mandatory. Cover letter, mandatory. I have posted a cover letter sample also on the course site. So you can see that in a cover letter, there are basic elements of the cover letter. First of all, you need to address it to the client, business owners, and if there's more than one, address it to more than one. It should be a short, concise, and yet say a few things. One of the things that your cover letter should say to the client is that you have based your approach on the information provided by the client, possibly your own research. So it should be very clear you're tying it into those business owner needs. Secondly, in the cover letter, you can highlight some of the key benefits or outcomes of your proposal that you're delivering to the client. The last element in a cover letter to a client with a proposal is often a final request for feedback or questions, and certainly an opportunity, an offer for the client to get in touch with you to engage you in the project. So going back to that title page, also make sure you have all your emails, non-UCW emails, so that the client can get in touch with you if they would like to have you work on the project with them. Okay, so mandatory title page, mandatory cover letter, mandatory executive summary. This section is usually completed best if you do it. It's usually completed last because you need to wait until you finish the proposal to be able to do some of these things. You want to highlight some key features of the proposal. In the executive summary, you're usually providing an introduction to the situation, the company and the situation they face, and the business need. You want to highlight some of the key activities or anticipated outcomes and benefits of your proposal. So it's very clear to the client in hopefully even one page that you understand what they're facing and that you are providing them with some key value pieces in your proposal work. So executive summary, complete this last, mandatory. Then there's a table of contents. Well, given that many of these documents will be more than 10 pages, a table of contents is required. If it's under 10 pages, not necessary. However, for anything that's 10 pages and longer, please use a table of contents. Okay, let's move down now to the introduction to the situation. I also call this the understanding your needs section. You want to demonstrate to the client your understanding of their business situation, information about the business, the industry, the issues that they're facing, their business needs, and the purpose of your proposal. And this is where you will identify your proposal objectives. What is it you're attempting to accomplish in this proposal? This section is mandatory as well. The next section are consulting team, mandatory. You want to identify the members of your team and really highlight some of their background and qualifications that really add value to this proposal that you're putting forward, and their role in the project. What would you propose for them? If the client wants to take on this project with you, would one of you be a project manager? Would some of you be analysts? Would somebody be focused on marketing? Think through what are the roles that you really need to, reassure the client that you have this well in hand. And keep in mind, for many of the small and medium businesses, they don't have additional resources internally. So they really want that confidence and reassurance that you can do this within your team, working with a project sponsor at the work site, of course, but that you are able within your team to handle the project. Key findings. Now, this is where we come to a portion of the proposal where there are options. So the Porter's Five Forces analysis is very much applied externally as well as internally. But you can also use a SWOT analysis or PESTLE or another analysis if you feel it is more relevant. For example, a SWOT analysis is in an organization that's very internally focused might be more relevant because they're really not looking so much at their competitive advantage as some of the issues that they face within their organization. So the strengths and weaknesses of the organization become very relevant, as well as some of the opportunities that they have for development and threats. And these may be both internal and external. If this section, as you're going through the analysis, is lengthy, just summarize it in the actual body of the proposal and place the detailed analysis in an appendix. And you see that the Porter's Five Forces can be applied to all these different areas. As with Porter's Five Forces, if you use this, you may find that 2 or 3 of the forces are really the key forces that this organization pays attention to. So you want to focus on those. And so in an application, they may also relate to some of these, but not all of these factors that are listed there. Okay, so project purpose objectives. You can see that this sounds like it is replicating under the introduction, but I would just basically state it out here very clearly under project purpose objectives, whereas in the introduction, you can be a little higher level in your statement of it. Here's where you should really identify what do you hope to achieve in the project, how are you addressing the business need? What are the intended outcomes and benefits to this client organization? So project purpose objectives is mandatory. The approach and methodology is also mandatory. This is where you answer the question, how and what? How are we going to do this and what will we do? So the approach should help the client understand how you propose to undertake the project based on what you're working toward with project objectives and outcomes. The methodology then will indicate what exactly will you do. So more specifically, what are the activities that you will undertake? You could create a table or a Gantt chart indicating several phases of the project and activities in each phase of the project, and any key deliverables. So what will you produce? This is often what clients pay for. They pay for the end deliverables. That is the products that you produce, whether it's a report, whether it's a workshop, whether it is a summary of best practices, whatever it might be, and a high level timeline for the project activities and deliverables. So you should indicate, well, what's the time frame for this particular phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, so that the client has some idea of the length of the project. Finally, in recommendations, you can identify options that you have selected to implement based on your analysis. However, if there is only one recommendation that you are proposing, then alternates aren't necessarily required. So really consider, are there other options that you might suggest to this client? Then you will list these in the recommendations section and identify which of the options that you chose and why. Okay, the change readiness assessment. This could be optional. Um, Under the UCW course requirements, it's put in there, but I think that in some cases, it may or may not be relevant to a specific organization. So ask yourself, is this organization, these business owners, are they ready to undertake this project? Are they prepared? Have they rallied their forces? Are people behind them? If they're not, or they haven't even proposed what their need is to anybody else in the organization, their executive, their managers, they may really need some help to think through how they undertake this change. With any project, there are always change impacts. So how ready, ask yourself, how ready is the client organization to undertake the recommended actions? What do you propose the client needs to do to make sure that the recommended plan of action is successful? So here are all the steps in the Cotter's process. And you can also research this online. There are lots of great examples of Cotter's 8-step process that is utilized for different clients, and what it means and how you can apply it, and some sample wording, etc. But the number one element, the first step is establishing a sense of urgency. This means that you need to identify what is urgent about this specific change, and have the owners establish that this is an urgency. If not, one of the recommended actions, for example, under establishing a sense of urgency, might be for the business owner to meet with the executive or senior managers and to bring forward the case for this project and the change itself. Step two, forming a powerful guiding coalition. Well, even if you're invited in as a project team, you can't do this alone. And the business owners may or may not be directly involved in the project and the change itself. So this means asking yourself, who needs to be involved with this change project? So who are the key people in the organization? Are they senior managers? Are they managers in specific areas where the impact will be the greatest? Really think through, who are the people or the areas and their leaders that need to be involved in guiding this change forward. Creating a vision. This isn't about an organizational vision. This is about the change vision. What will things look like when we have achieved our project? Moving into the future, do we see things being differently? Are we creating something that will help us see ourselves differently? So the vision itself is something that should inspire people, that should make them feel that this project is worth the effort, first of all, and that it's really going to affect a very positive change to the organization. Empowering others to act on the vision. And this means likely the powerful guiding coalition will be sponsors, or change sponsors for this project and any changes that are required. And the bigger the changes, the more important this is. If it's a large scale change or one that will ripple through the organization, you may need more than just senior managers or executive to help act on the vision. You may need people in key positions in the organization. So with empowering others to act on the vision, one of the recommendations might be that the guiding coalition for the project identify key people in the organization who will help accelerate and support the change. And these are often called change agents, by the way. The next step, 6, planning for and creating short-term wins. Depending on the length of your project or how extensive it is or how much effort it takes, often people in an organization need short guideposts along the way. That is, they'll quickly tire if it just looks like too big an endeavor. They need to identify What's the next goalpost? What's the next goalpost? And have some sense that are making progress and that this is working. This often increases the motivation of people. It encourages them to continue to put in effort because they know they're partway along the pathway. Consolidating improvements and producing still more change. This is step 7. This means that you will recommend to the client that they have some kind of review sessions along the way to really take a look at how are these actions really helping to improve the situation, to really assess the outcomes to date. This improvement review will really be important to ensure that that the organization keeps the changes that are working, the short-term changes, and continues to move along that change path. And finally, step 8, institutionalizing new approaches. Well, there's some creative ways to do this. This basically means helping people to feel this is the way we are now, rather than them saying things like, well, this is always the way we've done it. Your idea behind institutionalizing it is that you really anchor it in the organization. People really attach themselves to it, start to feel committed to it, really embrace it, understand that this new thing that's happening is really what they want to do. Some creative ways include celebrations or posting successes in a company newsletter or having a get together with staff to thank them for their efforts and to celebrate those short-term wins. So institutionalizing new approaches can also include things like including the new aspects of what you're doing in the organization in performance reviews, in rewards and recognition as well. Okay, the implementation, work plan, schedule, fees. This is mandatory as well. But I don't want you to be worried about this too much because, as we said earlier, here, the approach and methodology, we've already given a very high level timeline and a high level work plan, really. This just means that you will break it down a bit more. You'll say, okay, so we said in this phase, there are these activities, but let's be a little more specific about what those activities are, what effort those are going to take. So you can indicate them by weeks, or you can add hours of effort. So the client really understands what goes into each of these activities within each phases, and make sure that you're identifying where they fit in the timeline. So this is where something like a Gantt chart can be really helpful. You've got the phases, you've got the activities, and you can show what happens week by week with specific activities. The schedule itself, if you're identifying effort or hours, should result in an overall number of hours per phase and per consultant resource. So you can also identify who's doing what. This is not mandatory. You can simply give a team proposal with the hours for the whole team to work on the project. We will discuss this in class. Well, this is our class, sorry. So the schedule should be translated into a total number of hours, and this will be really important when you get down to pricing. Now, these two next sections are optional. And here's why they may be optional. Well, first of all, the issues and risk identification. Sometimes the business owner themselves will indicate to you what could go wrong with this. So those are the risks, or what's currently going wrong in the organization. Those are the issues. So things that haven't happened yet, but potentially could happen, become the risks that you want to identify, and things that they're currently experiencing. I don't know, high level turnover, the productivity levels low, whatever it might be, those are current issues. These become important to identify if, first of all, the client or business owner recognizes that there are some issues or risks, or if you yourself, in putting together the proposal, realize there are some things that really could go wrong for this organization with this proposal. So in this case, an advantage for the client is for you to have done the work up front. I usually put this in a table and say issues, and then another one with risks, and with a column that says low, medium, or high. And then on the right-hand side, indicate how you will manage this risk or issue. So a low risk, for example, and this is for probability of occurring, might be something it's happening currently. It could cause a few ripples, but it's not a big deal. Medium level risk, medium level for probability means it's going on in the organization. It's something that's happening in the organization. You're going to need to work around. And a high level for probability means that another issue in the organization and not part of your proposal, but it will certainly impact significantly on the outcomes of your proposal. So low, medium, high for probability, that is what's the likelihood of this issue becoming an issue, and then, or being a significant issue, and low, medium, high for the seriousness or impact on the project. So low seriousness means it's not a big deal. Medium seriousness is you're going to need to manage these issues. High seriousness means it could impact the project and the project itself may really falter. You do this for both the issues and the risks. Remember, risks haven't happened yet, so the probability can be a little hard to determine. So you might say, well, I don't really know what the probability of this particular risk occurring might be. So there is a bit of guesswork in there. And then low, medium, high for seriousness or impact. And then remember that right-hand column will include your proposal for managing those issues or risks. So you should think through, well, what would we recommend to the client, the business owner, in terms of how they can manage these particular issues or risks? So this particular section is optional. I do suggest you include it if these issues or risks are apparent to you, because it shows the client that you've thought through the process. And if you've thought through the issues and risks and how to manage them, you're one step forward. A contingency plan is also optional. A contingency plan suggests, well, given these issues and risks, do we need to have a plan B in place? This might even be one of the other options that you had under the recommendations section that you didn't didn't consider as your final solution. So it's possible that your plan B might be one of those other options, and you may indicate to the client, if the above risks or issues cannot be adequately managed, this is what we propose you do as an alternative. But it should still provide value to the client. It should still move them forward in meeting that business need. So contingency plan is not doing nothing. Okay, and then there's the conclusion and summary. Um, the conclusion and summary is, I would say, mandatory simply because it finishes off the proposal well. So the conclusion or summary should just, again, highlight project outcomes, the benefits, the value to the client organization, just a short paragraph to finish it up, kind of frame it if you want. And then your bibliography or references, all resources that you've used to prepare your proposal. And remember to cite these throughout your proposal. Any reference to client documents should be cited, external research and articles, and any other source you use to support your proposal. And there should be some research that you have done both on the company website, reading through company documents, as well as doing some external research, especially if the organization is looking at improving their competitive advantage. Yeah, you're going to be out there looking. Even if the organization is looking at internal growth and development, you might want to look at some other practices that organizations have deployed and their success with those. And that might be something that you cite to support your approach in this proposal and what you plan to do. And finally, any appendices. So remember that anything that's lengthy in the proposal is going to interrupt the flow of this business owner being able to read, digest, and understand what you're proposing to them. So if something becomes just too heavy in the document, in the body of the document, I suggest you summarize it and say, refer to Appendix 1 or Appendix A, whatever you want to call them. Refer to Appendix 2, refer to Appendix 3. And this makes it much easier for the client to relate to the content and to really access all the information that you have in there in a way that's very user friendly. Remember, a lot of these CEOs, executive teams, business owners, they don't have a lot of time to really work through a convoluted document that they're trying to say, well, what are they trying to say? Or I'm reading 3 pages of Porter's Five Forces. When am I going to get to the good stuff? So you don't want to interrupt the flow of what they need to see. So some final comments for you. First of all, again, want to reiterate, length does not mean quality. So be really careful about putting in your proposal what is valuable, relevant, and really adds to the client's understanding of your proposal. Don't include information that is an offside or an offshoot, or you're writing a marketing plan and you start talking about the marketing industry in total. The client, you're going to lose the client. Also, remember that these business owners in Canada have certain expectations of your writing skills. That is, they want to see a clearly written proposal without any typos. Don't misspell their names or their titles or their company name. Check and recheck your proposal so you know that there are no typos, no grammatical errors. Really, really be very diligent on going through your proposal at least a couple of times to make sure that it's error-free. This is important, not just for the proposal, but also for the presentations. I've had presentations that were made to business owners from other classes, and two of the business owners at the end said, I really liked the information, but I really got distracted by the typos in your presentation. I'm like, ugh, that happens, unfortunately. Or they're the ones that are receiving it, but there's an evaluation committee that needs to actually review it and agree on it. As, for example, an executive team, or what if they need to present it to their board for funding? You don't want the client to be uncomfortable because the document itself is not of a high written quality. So this does become really important. Finally, remember to look at the grading rubric. There's a grading rubric in there for projects, and make sure that you're really attending to all of those, like, deepening your thinking, clarity of writing, all of those things, and that you are doing your best for the client. And in the end, that's what it's about, is really delivering. Remember, again, said again 3 times, I think, you're delivering what the client needs. If you do this, the client will be extremely happy, really be very impressed by the level of what you've produced, and it begins to establish your credibility in the business environment. Now, business owners that are impressed with your work may not just mention this internally, they may mention it externally to some of their colleagues. Even if they're not prepared to begin the project, another colleague that they have in another company may be looking for help, and they may think of you because you have impressed them, you are credible, and your proposal is well thought out. So that's it for now, and I hope you enjoy this video. I thought I would provide it to you in advance, although we will have some time in class, hopefully after the first business presentation, the business owner coming in and presenting information, that you will ask questions as well during or at the end of that class, or at the beginning before the business owner joins us. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for all your support. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope it's really helpful. Bye for now.